The Bojinka plot starts in the Philippines. Ramzi Youssef just landed in Manila, and imagine other Afghans following him like the Seven Dwarfs. These other Afghans were tasked with creating operation cells in the Philippines, while Youssef was tasked with creating bombs. His first mission was actually pretty simple. He was tasked with the assassination of the Antichrist President Bill Clinton, who was visiting the country in a couple of days, starting his tour of Asia on November 12, 1994. Plans to kill him included planting bombs on his car route, killing him with chemical weapons, directly firing missiles at the presidential plane/car, or making a piano fall on top of his head from a 3-story building. Unfortunately, he decided against the ideas because they were all too complicated. But the plan to kill a high-ranking figure of Western society came back when the idea to kill Pope John Paul II was brought to the table. Okay, so the idea was to assassinate the Pope in the Philippines when he visited the country for World Youth Day. The Hitman 2016 level plan that they had involved a suicide bomber dressed as a priest with a Bible and a crucifix before getting close to the Pope and blowing up. If we're being serious, there's no possible way that they actually considered Youssef trained at least 20 men to carry out the plan before 1995. The next part of the plan was to make and place bombs on 11 American airplanes on flights throughout Asia to shock Americans. During the second leg of the flights, at least 5 men would then place them inside of life jackets which were located under the seats before debarking and repeating the process. The different airplanes would have then exploded over the Pacific Ocean, killing literally thousands. At the end, each man would take a flight to Pakistan and escape. The bombs would have been made with nitroglycerin, sulfuric acid, nitrobenzene, liquid acetone, and cotton wool stabilizers. 2 9-volt batteries were used as a power source, connected to light bulbs filaments that would detonate the bombs. As timers, they used Casio watches with wires pushed under the watch base in a way where the watch could be still worn normally. Throughout 1994, Youssef and another guy called Khalid Sheikh Mohammed started testing airport security, taking flights with illegal objects on them to see if the security would notice. For example, hiding the 2 batteries in the hollowed-out heels of their shoes, having a metal rod on the arc of their foot to use as a makeshift detonator to see if security would detect it, and even wearing jewelry through security to use as an excuse if the metal detector started to ring. Pinchmo and Pinchme even successfully smuggled 14 bottles of contact lens solution filled to the brim with nitroglycerin through airport security. By the end of the year, Youssef and Mohammed both moved into new apartments in the Malate district, with Youssef using a fake Moroccan identity called Naij Awata Haddad, which is perhaps the worst fake name I've ever heard for a human being ever. Mohammed used a similar J.K. Rowling level of shitty name by claiming the identity of a fake Saudi businessman called Abdul Majid. The man asked for and eventually got Unit 603 because it was close to a sort of embassy for the Holy See and by which the Pope would have passed by during the World Youth Day. Being the very discreet men that they were, they never allowed for the cleaning crew to come in, double-locked the door even if they were out, never asked or hired other people to help them with the boxes they always carried, and had chemical burns all over their hands. They were eventually joined by Abdul Hakim Murad, another dwarf. Even if the personnel were suspicious of the men, they apparently thought that they were just students. Anyways, they could now carefully plan Operation Bojinka, which by the way, literally doesn't mean anything. Bojinka is not a word and was just used because Mohammed heard it in the front lines of Afghanistan. At some point, Murad pitched the idea to crash a plane into the CIA headquarters to Youssef. Youssef liked the idea but didn't make plans for it yet because he was about to go scuba diving with Mohammed. Now that they had their own place to stay, Youssef started making the bombs. The first one he successfully built was placed and exploded inside the generator room in the wall to test its effectiveness. The fart bomb did almost no damage but unfortunately it proved that it could work, so he built others. The second one he then built worked far better and injured several people. It was placed under a cinema seat on December 1st, 1994 to see the damage it would then cause if it was placed under an airplane seat. The funding for all this came from a small-time extremist actually based in Afghanistan. It was literally Osama bin Laden. It came from bin Laden, the mega-terrorist. After the cinema accident, the next step was to test the bombs on an airplane. Using a fake Italian passport with, again, the incredible name of Armaldo Forlani, he booked Philippine Airlines Flight 434. During the flight, he built an inferior version of the final bombs he wanted to use in the toilets of the aircraft. Putting a 4-hour timer, he then carefully moved on seat 26K, saying to the flight attendant that he wanted a better view before placing the bomb inside of the life jacket under the seat. Disembarking on the second leg of the flight, the airplane then started with its final leg to Tokyo after a 38 minutes delay. At 11:43 a.m., the bomb exploded as planned above Japan, wounding at least 10 other passengers and immediately killing 24-year-old Haruki Igami, a sewing machine maker that was coming back from a business trip. The bomb blew a hole in the floor of the apparatus right in the cargo hold. The explosion itself made the right aileron uncontrollable and cut off control to the captain and the crew, making the aircraft tilt to the right before the autopilot took over. The crew then tried to pull Igami's body out of the hole created by the explosion before noticing that half of his body was missing. The hole created by the bomb was mostly vertical instead of horizontal, while most of the blast was absorbed by Igami's body, sparing the other parts of the plane. The fuel tank, that usually sits right under the row of C-26K, was placed further back on this particular airplane, which was previously used as a Scandinavian aircraft. Due to the fact that the airplane started its final leg 38 minutes late, the aircraft was not completely above water during the explosion, giving Captain Eduardo Reyes opportunities to land. The only way to land was to take off the autopilot, which the crew and the captain didn't want to do in fear that the plane would bank right again. After consideration, the captain decided to take the risk and put the autopilot off. Thankfully, the airplane didn't bank right, but the crew still didn't have control of the aircraft. The only way they found to still control the aircraft was by using the throttles to steer the plane the best they could, dumping fuel to allow the plane to slowly descend. The crew successfully landed the plane in Naha Airport with the 272 passengers surviving. Youssef was satisfied with the results he got, so he started planning the next step of his plan. The next step was
Oh my god! We're having a fire!
That's right, Unit 603 caught fire on January 6, 1995, 6 days before the Pope was scheduled to come to the country. There's a lot of different theories on what caused the fire. The first report was saying that Murad accidentally started a chemical fire in the kitchen sink. But see, that's where things complicate themselves, because some reports suggest that it was actually the police that started the fire, to have an excuse to enter the unit. But anyways, the fire was noticed by neighbors and the manager that immediately called the fire brigade. Police and firefighters arrived at the scene to find that the fire went out on its own, and that the man had fled the apartment. Police also found lots of suspicious bomb-making material. The bomb-making material here could be used to make a bomb, they probably asked themselves, before the phone of the apartment rang and made the police run downstairs, thinking it was a trap. The police were already suspicious of the man due to the wave of bombings, so they asked for a warrant and eventually got one. They could now investigate the apartment. After the fire, a man called Ahmed Said was sent to the apartment to retrieve a very important laptop. But he was discovered by the police. He first tried to flee but tripped on an exposed tree root like an Until Dawn character. He then quickly tried to claim that he was a pilot and it was firecrackers that started the fire in the apartment. This incredible lie that nobody believed was even less believable when they discovered that Said was actually Murad. Upon that discovery, he first tried to offer each policeman $2,000 to let him go, an attempt that was unsuccessful. At the precinct, he then tried to affirm that he was innocent and just a tourist visiting his friends, before apparently mumbling, "Two Satans must be destroyed, the Pope and America," like a schizo. After his first arrest, he was then sent to the headquarters of the Philippine Police Force. He first taunted police before enduring tactical interrogation, which is usually the synonym for unbelievable torture. Among a lot of different things, he was waterboarded, lit cigarettes were crushed on his genitals, he was hit with wooden chairs and wooden clubs, breaking almost all of his ribs, before confessing in fear of being taken to Israel. Besides confessing his hatred for America, the bombs, and his goal of being a martyr, he also more importantly confessed to the plans of Phase 2 of the plot. Murad was extradited to the United States on April 12, 1995. Right after the apartment was searched, Youssef made plans to escape to Pakistan. While fleeing, the police found heaps of evidence tying him to the plot, and a global manhunt started with a reward for anyone who could give his location away. Youssef didn't waste any time being an example terrorist and immediately started making plans to make suitcase bombs to hide in US-bonded flights in Thailand. He even started enrolling new people to help him. Thankfully, one of the men he tried to enlist alerted authorities that Youssef was in Islamabad, which is a real city despite sounding like the name of a Call of Duty map. Youssef was then arrested in the Su Casa guest house on February 7, 1995. Him and Murad both got life sentences in Guantanamo plus a couple of hundreds of years. As for Mohammed, he was later arrested in California but eventually got deported to Jordan. He then got murdered in his hotel room in 2007 in Madagascar by some burglars. And if we stop being pussies about it, he probably got assassinated by the CIA or the Mossad. So now, where does that leave us? Well, there's still the laptop they found in the hotel room. It contained not only the names but also the final part of the Bojinka plot. Remember the crashing a plane into the CIA headquarters thing that Murad had mentioned to Yusef? Apparently, Yusef had finally made plans for it. Plan A was for Murad, a trained pilot, to buy, steal, or hijack a small plane and fill it with explosives before crashing it into the CIA headquarters. Plan B, likely made by Mohammed, was to hijack a commercial aircraft and crash it into the... you get it. The final part that they discovered was to hijack more airplanes, and reading straight from the Wikipedia article here, targeting the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, the United States Capitol, the White House, the Sears Tower, the US Bank Tower, and the Transamerica Pyramid. Thank God the Bojinka plot never happened. 5 years later, the plan eventually became the basis for the 9/11 attacks. Good night, everyone.